Good evening and welcome to the School Building Committee for the Georgetown Middle High School project. Today's Tuesday, May 13th, 2014. We have no public comment, so we'll go right to approving the minutes for April 8th, 2014. Would anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the minutes? They were very brief.
We like to read.
We like them brief, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
One.
Motion carried. All right. We also don't have any invoices this evening for the Georgetown Middle High School, so we'll get right to the good news, of course, which is last evening, Georgetown voted to approve the renovation at the Georgetown Middle High School, and I just want to, on behalf of Michelle and myself, thank everybody on this committee for all your work, to Pat, Carl, Courtney for all your help, Mike, and of course to the people of Georgetown for supporting the project. This is great news, and I know as a committee we're ready to move forward and do what we need to do to get this project going, which really leads us to the next step. Would you like to share with us what that will be?
Well, I would just overview it and just point to the schedule that's attached to the back of our report. That's more or less the master schedule. It kind of shows where we go from here. It talks about the various submittals for design development, 60, 90%. And obviously takes us to hopefully a construction start in April of next year. And again, like I said, moving through the summer months and into the fall to complete. Majority of work obviously will be done in the summertime, but again, we're going to be looking to decompress it as much as we can by working with the school department to get whatever can be done before the summer to decompress some of that work, and then obviously get some of the work that will not affect the educational program after that. With that, with regard to the specific work program, I know Kyle and Courtney have a work program. Obviously now they'll be re-looking at it. I believe I see it up on the board here, the one that was prepared. And again, I would ask Kyle and Courtney just to walk through that in a more specific fashion, but we're off and running and ready to make all of the MSBA deadlines.
Of which we have 3, is that what we'll do?
Actually, they sort of gave us a reprieve on one. There typically are 3 more submittals at the end of design development, at 60% through construction documents, and at 90% through. But because this is a limited scope project and the time frame is fairly condensed, and there wouldn't be enough time for us to make a submittal, for them to make comments, for us to respond to the comments, we'd be into the next submittal. So they actually said there's no need to submit at design development.
Oh.
So that's sort of taken off the list of we'll still go through a design development phase, but we won't have to make the submittal, wait for their comments. We can go right into construction documents, aiming for the 60% submittal, get their comments at that point in time, incorporate them, and finish up the documents, make a final submission at 90%, which would be this winter sometime. I think we have those exact dates on the schedule here, but here's where we are now. The vote yesterday, so this bar here is design development, this is construction documents, and so about here, which is about 60% through construction documents, which is somewhere in the fall, we make a submission to MSBA with a full 2 cost estimates reconciled, and then later in the winter we make the 90%, and right now we're scheduled to bid it sometime in February or so, which gives plenty of time to receive bids, get somebody on board, and get them lined up so that they can hit the ground running the first day that school is out, in June.
So
take full advantage of the empty school.
yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Do you have any early thoughts on the programmatic things that need to be done inside the building? How that's going to work? Everything's going to be done during when the school is out.
We think most of it will be done while the school's out, George. But as Pat said, some of it may linger, but we'll do it in such a way that the short duration ones will all be completed by August, so that they can be reoccupied. Some things will probably continue on, but we'll want to segregate that with construction barriers and separate entrance for the contractor and all that, so that work can happen in an occupied school to finish up certain areas.
This shows construction starting in April and Easter, but you think.
Well, construction meaning awarding a contract perhaps, or starting to look at submittals.
There's a lot of,
and order
there's a lot of
long
shop
lead
drawings
items.
and long lead items that have to be audited and approved that you're gonna need for the
You know, if you have to
summertime.
buy
It
a
takes
new
months to get 'em.
mechanical unit, you wanna order that in May or something, so that it shows up in July, that kind of thing. So there probably won't be any outside activity
Right.
while the kids are still in school. There might be, we haven't really thought out that level of detail yet, but the big picture is basically.
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
I would think, I don't know, maybe the drainage digging out and back and stuff, some of that can happen while school's going on. I don't know.
Perhaps.
Well, that's
Perhaps,
why I
you
say,
know.
some of the things we would be talking about is, are there any areas where we could actually loosen up the inside, vacate some areas and so forth, and maybe get some of the things going there or outside? Those are things that, as we move into this phase, that's what this phase is all about. Really starting to fine tune the work that's gotta get done, and also look at the timeframes you can get it done in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about summer break is like, what, 6-7 weeks now?
Yeah,
It's
you're not
not
gonna
very
get,
long.
you're not gonna get,
It's a little longer
the
than
whole
that,
job
but-
done in the summer. You're gonna have to decompress.
Depending on the
Yeah.
snow.
Yeah.
I feel when the
shorter
sixth
than it
grade comes
actually-
out, it'll
Actually-
free up spaces
Eight
that if
weeks.
some of the
Well,
classrooms
we're hoping
need to
that-
be changed a little
2
bit.
full months.
Of course, that won't be freed up until they move into the new school, so
Right.
again, like I said.
But that would
during
be the second year.
You know, one of the
grade
things that
phase.
we've talked about in other districts too is slightly modifying the school calendar. And I don't know if you've already voted on the school calendar for next year, have you?
But keep going.
To extend the summer. In other words, try and start this coming year as early as possible, so you get out as early as possible in June, and start
And
the
then go
following
after
year
Labor
as
Day.
late as possible. Meaning,
Oh, okay.
if there's a week swing either way, if you go a week early this
Right.
year and a week later next year, that's 2 extra weeks. It extends the summer by
Right.
like 20%. A 10-week summer or an 8-week summer becomes 10, or
Yep.
that's pretty significant.
So if you
when
started
think of it
before
that way.
Labor Day this
Yeah.
year, and then the
Right.
following year started
Start
after
after
Labor
Labor
Day.
Pick up.
Right.
would
It
buy
can
those
make a
2 months,
difference.
2
I know
weeks.
there's a lot of
So
other
next,
issues.
you're talking about next year.
In September, this
Next year we're
coming
starting after
September.
Labor Day. That's been decided, so because remember, it's, Labor
Right,
Day
and
is
that's
like
what
the
he
first.
just asked.
Yeah, so that's already,
You've already decided to start after Labor Day?
yes.
But that
This coming
following June,
September?
The following year,
that,
will probably, Labor Day will probably be the second. I mean, generally, it doesn't, just kind of moves one day, so we would probably go after that
As well.
as
Carol,
well.
do you remember the last day of June that we're gonna, for the next calendar year, is it June 17th or
Yeah,
something?
17th or 18th.
Yes.
Right in that
So
ballpark.
that's a lot, it's
snow.
earlier than
No
this
snow
year.
days, right?
Yes,
June
there'll be no
17th.
Right,
snow
but it
next
is
year.
earlier than this year.
Right,
We tried to make it early, that was,
okay. Anyways, we can.
Yeah, we can pay attention to that as
Yeah,
much as
hone
we
in on
can.
that. One of the areas that there might be activity while school is in session is down here on the lower level, where there's the most significant sort of renovation, reconfiguration, new mechanicals, electrical systems, that sort of thing. But there's a way to segregate that area. Contractor can come in directly from the outside. Students can go around, there are corridors around this, you can bypass this area. So if it can't get done, you know, by the start of the school year, it seems like it could be safely segregated and work completed. I think everything else in the building, these other areas, the gym, all those things should be able to get done in the summer. And probably not on, you know, premium time, even just on ordinary straight time. That's our sense, but we'll be, you know, looking into that in a little more detail as we.
Oh,
And-
will the roof get done?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can the roof get
The
done
roof
during the
get
year?
done in the summer.
Sometime.
Oh,
You
sometime,
don't wanna
okay.
do that during the school year
Just
either.
noisy,
Even-
yeah.
You don't
Yeah,
wanna work
noise.
over occupy.
Yeah.
There's sometimes the solvent has fumes and you might,
Okay.
you know, be sucking in some of those fumes, and so generally you wanna avoid that too if you can. And again, the summer's adequate time.
There was some question at town meeting about
Yeah.
the drainage and whether it would affect the turf fields, and my understanding is most of the drainage problems are located in the back part of the building, and that
yeah, it's the first
The-
one, Carl.
the flow goes, the drainage is actually going back,
There's a
towards
little
the
bit-
back of the
There's
property.
a little bit on that side of the building, George, but it should be improving it.
And it's heading towards that
if we-
retention pond in the back, right?
Turn this way. Here's the football field over here.
Yeah.
Here's the hill up here. The backside of the school, we are actually intercepting some water at the top of the hill. So there'd be less water going towards the football field
Right.
once it's done. But there's no work like down close to where the football field construction will be going on. So there's no interference that way, and the drainage will only improve by intercepting
We're
some
not
of the
adding
water.
to their
up high.
problems.
And
And they've,
the main problems were that the water wasn't getting to that retention pond, right? That's one that already
Yes,
exists.
and that's gonna get cleaned out and reconnected and all that, yeah.
Now, will that fall under the new stormwater regs in 2008?
That's another discussion we're gonna have, you know, oftentimes in these situations, Conservation Commission will say they wanna review it, even though they may not have strict jurisdiction, just because, you know, it is part of stormwater management, but we're not, you know, adding any more necessarily than what was intended there originally, but
But the 2008 regs require that water not be standing 72 hours, so with any repair, if you're not doing any repairs to that retention pond, just making sure the water gets into it now.
cleaning it out, yeah.
And I'm not sure what requirements are.
Right, it's on our list of agencies we have to check in with here as we move forward, so we'll be talking with them again.
And that's a pretty large detention pond, that's one of the bigger
Right.
ones I've
That's
seen.
diagonal
and it's
hatched
not
area.
receiving the water right now that
Right.
it should be.
Right, my wife asked that when we were at town meeting, I said, this is where the pipe comes out, she says, it's dry, I said, it's because it's not getting in there.
That's right, right.
Carl, the other question that came up at town meeting, and I know Courtney answered it, and we sort of knew the answer, but someone did ask if you had been having dialogue with the engineers that were doing the artificial turf.
Mhm.
So we did assure people that
We did
that
talk
was
with them, yeah.
happening.
Right,
Yeah.
they have our drawings, we've had their SD drawings, and we'll touch base with them on their final drawings as well, to see if there are any changes.
Mhm.
Are we gonna have to test the soil?
We are gonna have to, we're
there's
doing
no-
it for drainage reasons, as well, because, you know, a couple places we're gonna be, excavating to intercept the water coming the hill. We wanna know what kind of soil it is, how permeable, you know, what the flow rate is across it and into it. So we are gonna be testing the soil. It's on the list. We made allowance for it in the budget.
It's already accommodated in the budget. We assume that it is because of the
Yeah.
other situations, but there's dollars in the budget. So if it comes up clean, we
Yeah.
obviously have saved some money, so.
But it's a pretty limited area that we're disturbing. You know, the whole back of the school is paved,
Yeah.
so that doesn't need a cap, it'll get paved, that's the cap. Up above, yeah, if we encounter it, we've made allocation that we might have to cap any area that we disturb, but most of it's, you know, out of the mainstream. It's in the woods or on the side of the hill.
Carol?
Related, but not
Mhm.
coming out of this budget, we just want everybody to be aware of it. In the budget process this year, one of the things that was discussed in the capital improvement budget, originally discussed, I think, to some extent in our discussion, but it didn't make it to the list that went to MSBA, but that involves those heat pumps on the roof. You know, remember the air quality discussions that we had? So the budget this year from free cash is gonna include $25,000 to do some of those. But the understanding is that in another round of funding, the rest of them could be done. What we were told is that it needs to be done before the roof, because otherwise, to put them in, you'd be putting 35 holes in your new roof.
Yeah.
So I just want everybody to be aware of that. I was just leaning over and saying to Mike, if we'd either have to request that at fall town meeting or spring town meeting. If we got it at spring town meeting, it would still be probably enough. I wanna make sure those timelines
Yeah.
connect.
We can coordinate that, Carol.
Okay.
If we're replacing them on a sort of one-to-one basis, we actually wouldn't be making new penetrations. We could use the existing penetrations in the roof. If we're not adding to them, we're just taking away
We
the.
were asking for $200,000, but the free cash just couldn't go that far this time, so the 25,000 will allow us to fix probably 5 of them.
Mhm.
And then hopefully we'll be successful securing the rest of them, and our intention was try to do those all at one time, not
Mhm.
in small amounts if we could avoid that.
Yeah.
But I just want to put that on the radar screen.
How many were there again?
There were like 50,
There's a lot.
55
There's a
or
lot,
something.
Were you fixing or replacing? Thought they
We were replacing
Probably
them. They
replacing.
all kind of outlived their useful life, and
Right.
some worked better than others, so
Yeah, I
that's
don't
why.
think they're all the same vintage. There are probably
Yeah.
some that are more
Staggered.
recent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they've been added to over
Yeah.
time.
So when I talked about with the finance committee, they asked me,
Right.
you know, and I texted Mike and said, Mike, are they all like imminently, you
Yeah.
know, he said, he thought if we could do it,
Stagger.
a year, that we could stagger that, so that's what we're doing. So in the end, that'll all get taken care of too, but out of another funding source, which is what I kept saying, we can't fix everything with this money, but we do have to coordinate.
Stu actually had an interesting question.
Yeah, while we were thinking about, or planning on replacing the roof, I thought it might be a good time to discuss possible solar on the roof. Kind of help offset costs. There's, second round of, solar credits out there right now, so, solar credit 2 for Massachusetts for 15 is 30%, and then 16 it's 10%. So it might be a great time to be talking about it, and I was talking to Mike about, the cap that we have over at the dump, maybe looking into doing solar arrays over there if it could be done, help offset potentially a lot of money in electric, for the town buildings.
I just wonder what the
School.
capacity of the roof is based on the new codes and everything else.
Yeah, I don't know, that's why I was
Have
bringing
to-
it
have
up
to
while you guys
double
are
check the
thinking about it,
capacity,
just
yeah.
if you
There's-
guys could reach out.
We have
maybe-
some projects where they wanted to go solar on a vintage 1950 some odd building, and unfortunately, the roofs weren't designed to take the additional load, but again, you'd have to do a double check,
Yeah.
For example, the gym roof probably
Yeah.
wouldn't be a good
Yeah.
candidate, it's a
Yeah.
Tectum roof.
Okay.
It was designed earlier than the connection of the two buildings,
Okay.
so.
Well, see what
There's
if you guys
some
can kind of think
opportunity.
about it and see if it's possible or if it makes sense,
It should be
the
pretty
structure's
straightforward to have the engineers double check that.
Okay, yeah, now's the
Yeah.
time to bring it up if
Sure.
we're,
Right.
if we're putting a new roof on, so.
Good idea.
Okay.
I don't think it would happen at the landfill either, because it's capped with the rubber membrane,
Yeah.
so that wouldn't,
Yeah, I was talking to Mike about that today, and, what'd you say, Mike, about a foot of soil over the membrane at the cap?
That's what I understand,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
The planning commission for Merrimack Valley did a fatal flaw study of sites throughout their members. And they did do a study of our cap landfill, and it passed the fatal flaw test, but they didn't go any further.
yeah, something to think about and see if it can happen.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanna bring up?
Just in one of the things in that schedule, right now, we still have projected just monthly meetings. There may come a time we
Go back to
have to go back to a different
monthly?
pace of meetings, but
Oh,
we'll
come
let you
on.
know well in advance.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we've gotten spoiled, I think. All right. Anything else? Oh, I do have one thing, not quite related to this, but I do want to welcome Pam Lundquist to our committee now in an official capacity. She'll be replacing Rob as the school committee representative. So I know, you all know Pam comes to our meetings anyways, but now she's sitting on the board with us. So welcome, we're happy to have you, Pam.
Thank you, I'm very happy to be here.
Great.
Very honored and thrilled.
All right. Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in any discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll take a minute recess. Does anyone need to see anything?
We haven't done phase one.
invoice I'd like to approve is,
Do we have any minutes, Sally?
I meant to say minutes, George, I don't need to say invoices, I'm holding the minutes. The first set of minutes I'd like to approve are from March 11th, 2014. These are the revised edition. Would anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there any other discussion? I don't know why they were revised, I wasn't at the meeting last time.
These comments, I added, remember I left out her comments.
I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I didn't realize.
She had made some comments.
And they were added in.
Left them off.
Okay.
She and I went back and forth.
Okay, great. So does, any other conversation on them? All right, all in favor of passing the March 11th, 2014 minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? I abstained,
I abstain too.
and motion carries. And the other set of minutes is from April 8th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions on it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I abstain.
Abstain. 2 abstains.
Okay, motion carries. All right. We have quite a few invoices this evening. I'm gonna read you the list of companies. We have several from Green Seal Environmental, Kopelman and Page, our attorneys, the UTS of Massachusetts, Municipal, DRA, Brate, Georgetown Electric, and N-Star Gas, for a total of $3,500,132.97. All in favor? Oh, would anyone,
Yes, so moved.
Second.
any discussion?
It's National Grid, just not N-Star.
Oh, it
right?
says N-Star.
No, but it's
Okay.
National Grid. The
I heard
invoice
you
is
talking
National
about
Grid.
that. Okay. It's
Yep, you're
National
right.
Grid.
It's National Grid, yeah.
I'm correcting it on here.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. George?
If you could just pass that around. sign
Yes.
to Mike downstairs.
I'll send it this way, George, and Eric, and you can send it back. All right. Next on the agenda is an update, Pat, from Municipal.
Yeah, why don't I just walk you through our report, and you can stop me anytime if you have any questions.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right here. I love the color picture, the cover picture. The entrance just looks
You can
beautiful.
thank Chuck, he plucked that out of the thousands of pictures that we have, and he thought that would catch
I know.
everybody's attention, yes.
You know, Courtney actually sent this to me. I happened to be at work when I saw it, so I sent it back to her and I said, did anyone spell check?
Yeah,
No,
Notice
This is
it's
a
on-
great picture.
It's of the gable.
yeah.
I've always been in favor of the gable.
Yes.
There's many hours talked about that configuration,
yes.
yes, yes,
And the design
yes, yeah.
definitely looks great.
But with your permission, I'll just run through this here. I mean, anybody who's been by the job, I mean, the job is really moving at a very rapid pace. I mean, it's teeming with, I think we're up to about 100 employees on the job now, and that's probably gonna continue to grow as the crews build, probably topping off at maybe 150, somewhere in that range.
Are they still working on Saturdays?
Intermittently. Every once in a while, they work a Saturday. They didn't work last Saturday, they worked the Saturday before that, and when they do, we have another man up there that obviously is handling the Saturday duties. Site work, though, is obviously moving along. The big push right now is to get the rest of the site up to grade, continue with the water main work around the building. The masons are gonna need water. Right now, they're using water out of the water truck for masonry mixing, but they're very close to turning the water on, which they'll do in conjunction with the town. It's been brought in all the way up the access road and is actually circling the building right now. Coordinating with the gas company, that's you've just approved an invoice for that. The summer work involves grinding the road, getting the drainage done, bringing the gas main up, so it's very important to get them into the loop. It's always difficult to get the utilities to move at the same pace. Fortunately, we have Georgetown Electric. They're gonna be a lot more responsive than some of the bigger utilities. So everybody is gonna be chasing the gas company to make sure they follow the drainage and get the road temporarily taken care of. Concrete, they poured the Area B slab. The only slabs that are left now are in A, and there's some column boxes in C, which I understand they poured some this past week. Steel erection is just about completed. They're working on the detailing, which is obviously taking care of some of the connections and doing the final trimming on that so that the inspectors can come in and double-check everything else. Miscellaneous metal, they actually have 2 sets of stairs now going up. There's one in the C wing and one actually in the B wing that's now going up.
Interior stairs?
Interior stairs, yeah, the stairs are going in. Carpentry, there's wood blocking going on all the way through the job. I mean, wood blocking is on the roof. There's a lot that's already been done where the roofing's in place. And there's blocking going on around the windows. The cold form metal framing, which is all of the stud work that you see that's steel, they're making very good progress on that.
I have a question. I saw the sample for the brickwork.
Yeah.
Do we decide on that, or is it already decided?
Actually, the work is decided. That's to show the workmanship that's gonna be involved. So the materials have all been selected. The mock-up panels are done so that the
There's a
architect can
couple
look
of
at
colors
the,
to pick.
to look at the
like color of
materials and the
caulking,
workmanship.
sheet,
Yep.
color of the mortar.
Yep.
But the brick
The brick,
and the metal,
metal and
that's
that's all
all been
taken care of.
selected.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about workmanship, so
So
we
who-
can
who
hold
de-
that
who
out as a
decides?
sample.
On,
We did a
We
long
did
time
a
ago.
long time
Long time
ago
ago, yeah.
collectively, but, you know, on,
Yeah.
on specifics, we're looking at quality of workmanship now, so that we can use that as a sample, you know, to compare against as they build the real building.
So there's gonna be both colors of joint, the mortar in between the brick, there's gonna be the white and the dark?
No, that's what we're gonna talk
We're
about
looking at it
tomorrow with the
tomorrow.
mason and the contractor.
that's a sample for
So-
there to be comments made, to look at the workmanship and the,
Right.
obviously the
Those details.
selection of the little things that can change, because a lot of the big items can't change. The
Yeah, the
panels
brick-
and the brick.
Right, the
and
brick's been
that's-
Because I
selected,
could
metal
definitely
panels.
notice a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can see it,
And,
yeah.
you know, one
Did you
looked,
have a
I
preference?
think the darker mortar looks better.
Mm-hmm, so do we.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, yeah. Moving right along on the,
Nice detail.
I just saw it, and the white, or the
Right,
gray,
right.
it
It's
didn't
too
look good.
contrasty.
I thought it was a mistake when I first saw it myself, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, and it was very, very stark.
But I like the color of the brick.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it looks
nice.
good, yeah, yeah, it's gonna look good. Inside the building that you can't see from a distance here, I mean, the interior partitions are all being installed, the metal studs are going up throughout the entire inside of the building in B and C. The roofing is installed in area B and C. I mean, the membrane is down and basically complete. The roof curbs for the major units have been set in place, and they're gonna be installed, ready for installation of the major units when they get here. They can just pick them up, plunk them on top of the roof. Right now, those units are just temporarily roofed over, so the building stays tight. Once the units get here, they'll remove the membrane, put the units up on top, and seal them to the curbs. So that's all going along real well. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the inside is a bevy of activity. All 4 trades, sprinkler, plumbing, heating, and electrical, are loaded with tradesmen. They're working through the C wing, working in sequence through the B wing, and they'll be advancing into the A wing. Right now, they're in the A wing working on the underground conduits, and they're moving along very well. General dust control measures and wheel washing, those are all in place, and obviously, there's a lot of emphasis on making sure that dust control and tracking material and so forth are under control, and we obviously have green sealers there with a full-time man with monitoring devices around the campus. That's pretty much where we are. Next month's anticipated activity, they simply advance the work that we've done this month, continuing to fill the site, trying to get the site up to grade, and preparing the interior slab in area A for slab pour, continuing the access road and driveway work. Site utility work will continue. We're waiting for some of the big tanks. We have a 20,000-gallon tank for condensate that's due in, I think it's due in next week. And then there's a 7,000-gallon tank. There's a very congested area that's going to be very carefully laid out to obviously install the condensate tank, the pressurized tank for the gray water system. A lot of utilities all coming out of that same area. But you've got to start with the deepest, biggest component and then go from there and work around it.
Is that going out back or out front?
Right and back, yeah, behind the school, yeah, yeah. Concrete floor slab, we talked about in A. All the steel work should be complete next month by the time we meet, including all the detailing, should be done 100%. Carpentry, wood blocking will be continuing in all areas. Coal farm metal framing should be 100% done by next month. Interior framing will continue in all the areas, that's all the petitions and soffits and everything else. And again, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, that'll continue in all phases, and that'll be something that'll be going on for the next several months. The project schedule, the contractor is still running ahead of schedule. We just gotta make sure he stays on schedule, because again, if he gets done early, we're not gonna be moving into this new school any early. We're gonna finish the school year in there, but it's good to know
Yeah.
that he's ahead of schedule, and it gives you more time to do punch list work and so forth. So they're moving at a very good pace. As far as the communications on site, Jim, you've attended meetings. I think, Ellie, you've been at meetings. It's a normal interaction between contractor, architectural team, project manager. There's bumps in the roads, we work together, roll up our sleeves, have at it, and get things resolved and move forward. So it's a good level of cooperation and give and take as we move through the project. Project budget report, if you flip over, Chuck's done a nice job laying it all out. If you look at the budget, we're really in remarkably good shape. We've gone through a lot of the site work and some of the items that you normally would look at as big contingency items, with the exception of the two big items were obviously the remediation and change order one for that $1,750,000.
That was changed.
And then-
We fixed it.
And then the substitution of the plumbing contractor. I mean, if you look at the rest of the changes when we get to that area, I mean, we've not had a whole lot of changes to be at the point that we're in right now.
Yeah, we look at a potential change order, because Pete was talking about some ideas for changing the site drainage, so would that require,
If you changed anything on the drawings, then yes, it would be a change order. At this point, there's nothing been done, so they're starting now.
Yeah, I'm not, maybe Chuck's more familiar, I'm not familiar with changing any of the drainage, but if there would be a change, and if you're taking work out, it'd be a credit, if you're putting work in, it'd be an extra, so whatever dialogue would take place.
well, we met downstairs, and maybe Pete could talk about it a little bit, but he's talking about maybe putting a rain garden in off to the side, and that would require additional engineering, probably
That's been changed since the last meeting with the selectmen. It's gonna be a closed system, and, it would be nice if we didn't have to take all the water from the hill. If we could take maybe the top, two structures, I think, and have them go off to the side into, like a retention area.
Talking about the lower area on the
No,
access
the-
road, or where?
The,
No, the
almost at the
driveway.
very top of the driveway.
Top of the driveway,
If we
okay,
could
yeah,
take two of those structures off that line coming down to tie into Elm Street,
Yeah.
that would help.
Yeah,
So, currently, right now, the water comes down, the access road to Pembroke School and, goes toward, East Main Street and then goes into the wetlands. And, we'll have to put a closed system in and it will still go into the wetlands, but we'll have to put, a filtration tank in, to filter that water. I know all the structures you're putting in are deep sump, so that's gonna help.
yeah, yeah. I would say that if there's anything along that line that we want to investigate, we should have the engineers be talking to Peter right away.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
gonna
I'm
be
still,
We talked
I'm
about
still
that
waiting
last
to
month.
get a,
We did, yeah.
That
We
was,
talked about
Yeah.
it last month, because this is all work that the contractor's planning to do this summer.
Well, that's
Yeah.
my point.
It's a month and a half away from getting it.
Yeah, I mean, this summer, he's gonna be hitting all those areas, so if there's anything that's gonna be, come to fruition, there should be some dialogue right away.
Right, the last
yeah,
thing
that
we
should
did
be
is,
showing up on the monthly reports if that's a potential change order.
Well, we don't know.
Well, yeah,
We-
we're not,
there's-
right now, we're in the dark on it, we're not aware there's any dialogue taking place, so I'm saying that the engineers probably should get a hold of Peter right away
Right.
and get into some dialogue.
our last.
Then that will show up as a proposal request, then it'll show up on the report.
But I think, Pete, what you're saying is, you don't have an engineer yet for the Elm Street work.
No.
So there's nobody to talk to yet,
Yeah.
Matt. There's no engineers yet.
we haven't signed a contract with an engineer yet.
So this is,
So, but I know it would make it easier, for that water that's being
Yeah.
collected, if we could take the top two, structures that may take 100 feet of that hill, and there's an area off, if you're coming down the hill to the left, that you could do a retention area for that water to go, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Chuck, you know a little bit more about it, is there anything that can be done with our engineers to prepare to take stuff into that street or not?
it's a concept at this point.
Yeah,
It's just an idea.
Well, again, like I said, I guess the only thing that can happen right now is there'd be some, some dialogue with the engineers, and when you get somebody on board, they can take a look at
How
it
close
together.
are you to getting someone on board, Pete?
Could be a month, could be 2 months.
Well until the summer work.
yeah.
then.
Well, whose budget would the filtration tank go under? Would that go under the Elm Street project?
Yep.
Because it's off-site. The only thing that would, from Pete's comments, and Pete and I have to talk about this, the only thing that would be on this budget was any of the revisions you did to the top two structures, as Pete says, the top two structures, whatever revisions you did to those, or was proposed to those, or if there was a way to engineer a retention pond of some kind up at the top, that would all be a change to this job, and there'd be credits and offsets and things like that. The problem is, as we discussed last month,
This was the
all
one
have to
spot
go
that
back
was
to the
discussed for
conservation
sure.
But he's saying to the left.
because this project has already been permitted by the Conservation Commission for the design as it is now. That means you won't do any work this summer on that storm.
So they okayed the design with, just blocked structures at the bottom of the hill?
Absolutely.
So you just have an engineer do specs for the size, for handling everything coming down the hill.
Nitch has provided calculations for what's coming down
Right.
from the top of that hill, and I think we've,
So,
we've made that information public.
you already catched, you're really at a point here where you're at a crossroads. Either we tell them not to do the work this summer, in the hopes that this might work, or we go ahead and we put the work in, and Elm Street's gotta
Yeah.
pick up
I
the
mean,
water coming.
that's why I keep bringing it up, because it has to be resolved,
I understand.
Mhm.
We can only react to what we have, though, at this point, we don't have anything.
I can tell you one thing we can't afford to do, is delay the work on that for the summer. That really will upset the whole apple cart, not to mention they come back and say that if you're gonna push the work further down the road, then they're gonna need additional dollars, and it'll affect the future work, because next summer, there wouldn't be time to get that all done, because we got that whole phase 2 to finish up. So, one thing that has to happen is whatever we do, we've gotta continue with the summer program. It would really be injurious to the schedule.
And those catch basins and piping coming down the drive are going in.
Yeah,
Yes.
oh, yeah, oh,
Right.
sure, yeah.
They're going,
It's all part of the project, yeah.
And the new gas line?
Yeah.
They're on site.
Yeah.
We're being brought here. They've all been ordered.
Mm-hmm.
I think from
Yeah,
the
they're here.
Center that they bill us for.
Yeah, that drainage will all go in first, George, because that's deeper than the gas, and then we'd want the gas company coming in right behind the drainage work to get the gas main in, so.
I mean, because if we go to a rain garden off to the left, that would go underneath the gas main, I would think, right?
I have no idea, I'm not familiar with how that would be designed, I don't know.
And that's where the area you're talking about, right? It's off.
I don't know where they're
Left.
putting the gas main,
It's
if
coming
they-
up on the left-hand side of the road.
Yeah,
So if it's coming up on the left-hand side, it won't even be going underneath that. It won't even be in the way,
I mean, the
gas
drain-
line.
the drainage pipe will go underneath the gas line. If you go into
The
a, if
structure
you
will be
take it
on-
into a
there'll be
rain
structure
garden.
on either side, and then it will go to a manhole, and then, and the manhole's in the middle, and then it will go to the, if you're going up the hill, it'll go on the right-hand side.
Yeah. I mean,
So the gas main's on the left-hand side, so.
So the
it
gas
won't-
main's on the right-hand side too.
I don't know, I don't know where the gas main is, but it's. they
It's
just
going
said
up the
it was on
right-hand
left.
side as you're coming up, the drive.
Is it on the right or the left?
I was thinking coming down the hill, it's on the left. Coming up the hill is on the right.
So,
They-
I
they
mean,
had-
it doesn't seem like it matters right now, cause it seems like they're, pushing this to go in, they're gonna have closed structures, and we're gonna have to, the town is gonna have to pay to have everything from the school tied into the Elm Street project with the extra filtration tanks and things like that, so. And if I could get a copy of those, calculations of the water coming off
we
the
had
hill,
provided them,
I'll send them to you.
is it to the engineer, to me, or?
They were sent originally when you and I met with Bay State. in
Right.
Bayside.
they, yeah, Nitch had
They
given
were
them,
sent-
handed
So
them.
they have a
sent
copy
at
of
the
them?
time,
Yeah, they
yes.
had handed them.
I mean, but if,
I have 'em if
it does matter now if we're gonna put.
Well, it doesn't
rain
seem
garden-
like it's gonna be changed, so.
Is that-
You may have run out of time, unfortunately.
What would be the ideal situation?
Well, the ideal situation is when 3 years ago, I brought up the water coming off the hill, that the school take care of the water coming off the hill. That would have been ideal. So, but that's not gonna happen.
So it's going into a closed system?
It's not going in anywhere. They're gonna cover all the structures. and
Oh,
the water's gonna
until
go
we
right over
tie
the
it in.
top.
With Elm Street.
Until you decide what happens on Elm Street.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. All right. So how quickly can we get the engineer?
You know,
Bids
I've
and
been to
things
the
in.
selectmen 3 or 4 times. Rob Hoover has some concerns, the historic has concerns now, so, you know, it's not like it's gonna happen at the next meeting.
What's the historic concerns?
Some of the trees that are on the Elm Street
That would affect drainage?
will affect the whole job. You know, we're gonna
Oh,
be
the
in
Elm
there
Street job?
reclaiming the road and, so,
We're concerned about clipping the roots, right?
Yeah.
And killing them.
Yeah.
Do we have time to put that on for Monday's meeting?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have a revised, contract by then, so
No.
there's no sense having to put it on and,
Okay.
so.
The following meeting then, or if we have to meet sooner to talk about it?
Yep.
All right, can you keep us just kind of super in the loop on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Want to continue? I think what I'll do, rather than go to the monthly budget, I think I'll go to the change proposal log first, and we can just work from there. If you look at page number 7, you can see that we already have change orders in place. The first 3 are in place. Change order 1 was the $1,750,000 for the remediation of the contamination issue. Then there was the replacement of the fire protection plumbing contract, or sprinkler contractor. And then 3 was, there was 3 small items that were just simply items that had to be done, either gaps, or there's some gate design changes because of the distance of a gate valve to the fire protection line. A couple of minimal changes to the fire department requested changes. And then fire protection requests for additional valve cabinet. So those have all been in change order 3. Change order 4 is being presented tonight. There were 2 items. Cost to reroute the storm piping in response to a question that was asked. And I would ask Chuck to maybe explain that one. And then 2 additional water gate valves, which were also necessary, and that's being presented. And as that comes before you, I guess we can have Chuck or Courtney explain the content of that change order 4. But again, if you subtracted the top 2 categories for the stage of the project we're in, we have an extremely low percentage of changes to date. We did receive a change proposal today that we just haven't even had a chance to review it. We'll be talking about that next time around, and that's the Johnson property. That's the only other one besides obviously the big one, and that is obviously the North Fields, which we're still working on. But again, if you take this and project this over to the budget side, on page 5, if you take that down to the bottom, if you look at the revised budget on the left-hand side, as we've been saying right along, MSBA allowed us to use some of the dollars to replenish our contingency fund, which was originally $1.8 million, so they allowed us to take the surplus dollars and use them against change orders 1 and 2, which really helped out, and it kept our contingency level at the same point. You have your owner's contingency, and if you take it down to the bottom, you can see that we're in very good shape all the way across the board. So the job from a financial standpoint is running extremely well, and we're all on our way to take the job into the black, with the exception of some of the other dangling modifiers that we'll be talking about as dollars are identified on the other categories. Schedule,
I just had a question.
yeah.
It's still pending, but the Northfield grading and remediation.
Yeah.
What's pending on that?
Well,
It's actually another agenda item.
Yeah,
Okay.
We'll
yeah.
All right.
You wanna take,
Get
okay,
through
take
that,
it as a-
yeah.
okay, yeah. Chuck also has cash flow projections which are attached. And safety issues, we've had no safety issues on the project. Quality control, and quality compliance. Again, those are handled on an everyday basis. Pete's out there watching the job, we have inspectors on the job. Anything that comes up, contractors addressing, whether it's from the commissioning agent, or any of the inspectors, or Kyle and Courtney, they're all addressed as they are identified. Environmental compliance, again, I think they're doing a reasonable job, keeping up with a very, very difficult process of keeping the dust down, keeping the tracking off. We have wheel washes, we have, we've created contractors created a layer of clean material around the site, so the majority of individuals are parking on clean material, so they don't need the 40-hour hazmat rating for their OSHA category. Community issues, I said the only item we have on the abutter issues is we did receive today a price. I'd rather review it before we put it on the table. We just got it this evening on the Johnson property. That'll be something that'll come before you next time around once it's reviewed. MBWBE, again, we're monitoring the payments to the minority and women business enterprises, which is a requirement by the used to be SOMBR, it's now the OSD, Office of Diversity Compliance. And the payroll affidavits, though they don't show here, Peter is monitoring those on a infrequent basis. He goes down to Town Hall, makes sure that the payroll affidavits are in place. If they're not, we notify the contractor, and he jumps on top of the subcontractors. I think that takes us kind of to the end of the line. The schedule, there's a master schedule behind here. Again,
What's the current underbid right now?
I'm sorry,
You have the contingency, what's the current underbid?
about $1.6 million.
Yeah, almost a
The
million.
authorization
Million
now.
It's under it.
Yeah. It's right underneath there.
683.
So if you go from the revised project funding agreement up to the town authorization, it's about $1.6 million, $1.683 million, yeah.
I have a question also. Have they, are we needing Green Seal's, job management or services a little less yet?
No, no. Matter of fact, we're gonna be needing them, I mean, this summer's gonna be much more, a bigger effort, forget the North Fields, but they're gonna be going in and doing the septic system, next to the existing school. They're gonna be doing all of the road work, and they're gonna continue on the site work around our building. So theoretically, that one guy that's out there right now will be doing double duty.
Okay.
When can people go on a little tour?
Tour?
Yeah, like, when could they go on a little?
Well, we were thinking that maybe one of our next meetings, once, we were waiting for the interior stairs, because Pete actually took me on a tour with the outside stairs. They're just a little staging thing, and you don't want to be climbing those. Especially if you have height issues. That's why I asked about the fact that the interior stairs are going in.
And I'd like to see the site work a little further ahead. Right now, you're gonna be climbing around trenches and so forth,
Yeah.
so I would say that as they finish grading the site, and they finish some of the utility work around the building, and then the stairs are in place, and a lot of the interior, work that's being done, I mean, there's a lot of debris on the floor, and I mean, it's just the nature of the business, they're bringing stuff up, they're installing it, so you'd like to have it in a little bit cleaner, and more organized situation, so you're not climbing over things. I would say within the next month or two. Should be a good time to do it.
Pat said we could have a meeting in the trailer,
Yeah,
and then we could
just walk out. Yeah.
walk over there first.
Yeah, yeah.
But I will tell you, it was very impressive. And walking through the classrooms, I got such a nice feel for where they were.
Mm.
And I had such a good feel for where we were that when Pete said, the outside garden, I said, no, that's not it. He said, yeah, this is it. I said,
Yeah.
no, that's not it. I said, we're on the second floor. He said, yeah. I said, nope, it's on the third floor.
Yeah.
So it was,
Know your building.
I
That's
knew
good.
where I was, yeah. Yeah, I
That
knew
was a test-
exactly where I
That was
was.
a test, by the way.
I know. He and I were laughing about it. I said, I guess that proves I've been paying attention because
Yeah.
as we walked through, I could envision everything.
Mm.
Like I viewed the windows at the end of the hallway. I stood in the library and I looked at the woods.
Mm.
I peered out the round window. I mean, I really knew what I was looking for, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's why I was asking
So-
that, because we're working on the FF&E,
Yeah.
and it's just hard for me to imagine, like, how much space we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, so what can fit in there? Can two round tables? Can a
You won't be able to
rectangle
tell
table?
yet, Carol, without walls anyways.
Oh, you wouldn't.
Doesn't
You
have walls
need
in.
something to give you.
There are no walls.
You wouldn't.
It's
right
just
now, you
had,
wouldn't
there's
have
some
metal studs.
beams,
just metal
yeah,
studs.
No
You don't have
drywall.
the
yeah.
Okay.
It will be off. You do need some type of wall up to really get a good feel for it. And then you can go in with chalk even.
In a
at
month or
some
two,
point.
that some of
Yeah.
that will be up.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any questions to Pat on the monthly
Okay,
report?
just one more, so any potential change order in remediation, could that still come out of the underbid?
I don't know. It was something we would go to, we would have to go, if there's anything that would exceed where we are with our contingency, which is, I don't know, 400,000 plus $1.8 million, that's what we have for owner's contingency right now, within the confines of your arrangement with MSBA. Then you have that up to what you authorize, which is another $1.6 million, let's say. We would have to go to MSBA and explain to them the situation and why you wanted to do it. Even though it's your money, it's still part of the overall agreement with MSBA. So would they be inclined, depending on what it was for, depending on the situation, they would, even though you're paying 100% of it, and the feeling would be that it's our money, why couldn't we spend it? They would still chime in, and we would not want to ruffle their feathers by going out and trying to spend those dollars, because anything that we spend has to be a change order, and if a change order shows up and it anticipates funding coming from someplace else, everything will short circuit. Chuck can tell you that when we do the pro pay, everything is put into very specific categories. It's approved by them. If there's any money being moved from X to Y, we have to do budget revision requests to get their permission. That gets circulated to all the parties. They want to make sure that everybody is in the loop when it comes to spending any additional dollars in any category for anything.
But to George's question, we could theoretically go to them with a proposal.
Yes.
If Green Seal says,
Yeah.
oh, we need this much more money, because something came up.
Yeah, well, the first thing they would say is, that's what the contingency's for. That's the first thing they would say. Have you depleted your contingency? Right now, we're not even close to depleting the contingency. So that would be the first question, is you'd really want to make sure that you have an argument that says, if you had a project that had used up a substantial amount of contingency, and you got to a point where there was something else that you needed to do or had to do, and it would take your contingency below a reasonable level, which we're not there yet on, but if it did, then you might have a reasonable, we really need to do this, we're under budget, our contingency's now, precariously low, we'd like to be able to replenish it with some of the dollars from the project funding agreement up to what the town authorized. Then that would be kind of a reasonable approach. Right now, our contingencies are in fantastic shape. So again, it would be premature to do anything until we get to a point where there becomes a real necessity to look into those categories, look into the avenues, so.
All right. Any other questions about the report? Okay. Then Chuck, would you like to talk to us about change order number 4?
I'll let Ms. Courtney.
Oh, Courtney, would you like to talk to us?
Change order 4 has a combination of 2 different proposed change orders that total to $7,272. And the first one was a reroute of a roof drain in Area C, and that was based on just structural conflicts with the location per plan. So we just relocated it over from one Chase location to another that had more clearances. And the total for that change order was $4,157.95. The PCO 12 for the added gate valves, it identifies it on the schedule as a water department request. It was actually, the water department was on site with the contractor, and the contractor asked, do 2 gate valves on the back of the incoming water service before it tees off into the building makes sense so that they can shut it off in case of an emergency. The water department, I believe it was Lou, is it Mamelette, his last name?
Yes.
He agreed to it, said that sounded like a good idea, and he's aware of the change order as well, so he took a look at the change order and agrees to the scope. So, again, the total was $7,272 for those 2 change orders.
$7,272.
And 21 cents.
21.
So it's
We-
per contractor request.
It was a contractor
Suggestion to the town.
suggestion to the town.
So better way to do it.
So would you like us to take a vote on this? Okay. All right, all in favor?
Need a motion and second.
Yes. Okay. Would anyone care to make a motion to accept change order number 4 in the amount of $7,272.21?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
The reroute of the roof drain, is this something that was done early in the building stage, so that they could, put the roof on and then still do the cement work underneath, or is this something that was needed because there's some structure in the way?
There's some structure in the way. What happened is the roof penetration, and the roof drain on top stayed in the same location. It's just the piping that was rerouted.
And it was done before the floors were.
Right.
But the drain was already in.
The drain
and the
itself,
structure was
the drain
already in.
itself was in the
It
structural
was the
seals.
rain leader, as to where the rain leader
Right.
had to go.
Just the piping.
And the gate valves, that wasn't picked up in the design?
It's not a requirement.
It's not.
That's what we're saying.
Right.
We're trying to be politically correct, I guess,
an
and say.
enhancement.
It's not a requirement. It was a suggestion by the subcontractor to the water department guy who was there, who agreed, yeah, that's a good improvement. It gives us flexibility in the future for maintenance or should there ever be a problem. So he agreed to it in that sense, but it's not technically a requirement.
What it does is it allows you to say if there was a problem with the water main coming up from one side of the building, it allows you to shut off that water coming from the outside because you're putting a big loop all the way around, big loop water main. This allows you to shut off the water if there's a problem on one loop, say there's a break or there's a problem with it. It allows you to shut off that, but not shut off the school because then the water would come from the other way. It's a good thing to do, it's a smart thing to do for a water line of this size and for a building of this size.
But we
You
didn't
could
think
live
of it.
without it, you could have lived without it, it
Sure.
would have been fine.
Is there 2 water lines? Like, I know that there's a water line that stopped and you added another water line from the Johnson's property.
Well,
Does it
it-
loop
It
in
loop-
front of the
It's looped,
building?
yeah,
And
and
then
then
does it
loops
loop-
around behind the building too.
It loops, yeah. It
There's
loops from the
2.
streets around,
Right.
and then it loops again, it loops around the building.
It's the best way to do it in terms of flow, when you've got a sprinkler system and that you're depending on for the, building safety.
That, then, it adds that extra sense of backup,
Right.
is really what it does.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Pass that back to me when you're done taking a look at it and get it signed.
Does anyone wanna look at the change order?
And before, we provided 6 copies of the change order, just because that's our standard contract, but if there is a different amount of copies, we usually keep one, municipal keeps one, contractor, so let us know if you want a different number of copies.
No, no, that's fine,
Okay.
all right. All right, so I know we can pass off the Johnson
Yeah.
property, we'll talk about that at the next meeting. We just keep adding it on in case something has come up.
Yeah, today.
It's gonna last us 10 minutes.
Yeah, so that's fine, we'll put it up next meeting. Okay, would you like to discuss how we are progressing with the fields? Who would like to discuss?
Well, I mean, we're meeting again tomorrow morning. I can tell you where we are, and then Kyle and Cody can tell you where they are. We've been talking to both DRA and to Brait. I talked to Bob Brait 3 times today. I talked to him at 9 this morning, noontime, and 3 o'clock this afternoon. There are several things in their packet that they've looked at, and I can't tell whether they're personal embellishments or something that we've asked for, but clearly they look like something that we might be able to move out, not to mention that we still disagree with the pricing that they've done,
Because it's,
because it's too high. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Our analysis is that a lot of their numbers are too high. And in the meantime, we've talked to Kyle and Courtney about some of the things that we're seeing in there that might have crept, the scope may have involved some creep. In other words, in the effort to try and build a better product, some of the things that are getting in there might be embellishes that we never intended to have in there.
okay,
We're trying to go back to the basics. The idea was to put the material in back, cap that back material, and then cap the rest of the fields. And obviously, as things have progressed, everybody has an idea on how to maybe use a different material underneath it, maybe it drains a little bit better, maybe we can we do a little bit more clearing in the backside and expand the field here. Those are all good things, but they all add costs. So the thing is to take a look at it, to go back and take a look at the overall scope as to where are we, and how much of these embellishments have just crept in without anybody consciously saying, let's do it. And then at the same time, really roll up our sleeves with Brate and really take a hard look at those areas. So I know it's been a protracted situation. Believe me, it hasn't been through lack of effort. We've had more discussions. We've had meetings, prior to our regular weekly meeting with them and rolled up our sleeves. Their proposal that they've given us, the first couple were, quite frankly, incomprehensible. They were so detailed. Today, quite frankly, at 2 o'clock, explaining to Bob that we still couldn't understand how they're putting some things together. He finally agreed he couldn't understand it either. So we went back to the drawing board at 3:30 this afternoon. They're redoing the material so it's easier to read. So there's a lot going on. So between looking at any scope creep that has gone into the project and looking at the dollars and so forth that they're putting on the table and in a format that's better, easier to understand, hopefully we're gonna be able to come up with something that we can put before you and say, this looks like it's reasonable. And right now, we don't have that right now because, again, like I said, despite all of the efforts we've made, we're still in a position where we're still trying to pull it together in a reasonable fashion.
Okay.
What does that mean, Pat, for the consequence? So I'm just trying to get a sense of what it means down the road. We were already worried that the fields wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to be used for at least the fall next year.
Well, at the very best,
Yeah.
at the very best, the work will be done by Brate this summer.
Oh, that's.
At the very best.
Okay, done meaning the grass gets planted.
There'll be,
But
again, if we
like
stay
this-
with, grass, they will sprinkle seed and get it watered this fall.
This fall.
Yeah, and a year from this fall, you'll be able to use it,
Why would we stay with grass?
okay?
You can go to
Okay.
sod.
If you go to
What do
sod,
you think I'm gonna do with these children
if you go
for
to,
a year?
if you go to sod,
Really?
you'd be able to use it next spring.
If I go to
Yeah.
sod, we're gonna use it
Yeah,
next spring.
because you'd want to pin it and have it establish itself this coming fall, and then you'd be able to use it next spring. Now, that's the best we're gonna be able to get out of Brate. Because again, it's gonna, once we get this
Not a good
resolved,
answer.
he's gonna stir this into his summer program. And quite frankly, when you look at it, to have all of this activity happening when the kids are out of school is not a bad thing.
Oh,
You know, it's actually, that works out pretty well. If he does it all summer long and he's got all this site work activity going on,
I'm just trying to
tearing up
respond
the
to
road,
what it
working
means
on the
to
fields,
kids.
no kids around, no staff
I
around,
know,
that would be great.
but I'm just trying to understand how it,
Yeah.
what the
And
impact is next year.
that's the best we can expect, is that at the end of this summer, they'll be ready to seed it in early fall.
Ready to seed it in early
Yeah.
fall.
Or sod it if
Or
the money
sod
were
it,
there.
if,
Yeah.
Or some combination of the two.
Or some combination of the two.
I'd
What-
be a fan of that.
What's
That's
the-
what I'm
what's the
thinking,
update?
yeah.
I just don't
Yeah.
envision those kids playing on that circle for a whole other year.
We just sawed one part of it that,
We can do anything you wanna do. We're asking them for an à la carte proposal. We're asking them to give us, and we're trying to get to a point where we come up with a basic proposal that emulates what the original concept was, to get those areas, to get those fields covered over. From there, we go into, okay, now the alternate one is to go with sod. Alternate two is to put the irrigation in. Alternate three is to actually develop the ball fields with the infield mix and the fencing and the benches and so forth. So there's a series of items. But we can't even get yet to the basic number to come to you with something that's reasonable.
we have to look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Are we still taking that area where the trees are? Is that still gonna be filled in at some point?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I just noticed the trees were still there, I didn't know.
It's our
Yeah.
sort of flex space.
Yeah.
But it
because
will
the
be eventually
quantities are
used.
somewhat unknown.
Yeah.
If
Still.
the change order's approved, if
Yeah.
you approve to do that work, it will be. It's
Yeah.
not in the drawings to do
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
But if you approve to do that, as part of the remediation,
And if we don't approve, then the soil has to be taken off-site?
No, actually, right now, the way it's set up, the grading plan, because again, this is part of that scope creep that we talked about. At one time, we were gonna put all that material in the back and then we were gonna cap it. During some of the discussions, it was decided that, or it was determined, it would be advantageous to have a minimum difference in height between the two fields and the upper field. Maybe we shouldn't have any more than two or three feet between the two levels. Well, that raised an issue, because even though we can flatten it out and push it further toward the limit of work, it's still gonna be too high to have that particular level. So a lot of that material will be pushed over to that area that's gonna be cleared and so forth, and piled there, obviously to get this field down to lower, give you a little bigger platform, but it means moving a lot of that material down there. Material that lands there, that would stay there, it would be temporarily covered, and that becomes now the repository, because in phase 2, we have more contaminated soil material. We don't want to take that off-site, that'll cost a fortune. So we are leaving that as a repository to bring the material there, cap that eventually, and leave that as a hill the kids can play on. There's some landscaping goes on top and so forth. So, again, if we didn't have to lower that field, and that goes back to, well, maybe we don't have to lower that field. If we don't have to lower it, we save moving a lot of material into that lower
But if
area.
you, I just have one quick question, because I know you still need to work this out, but if it's not lowered, how would people get up there?
Oh, that's, I mean, it's a matter of whether you'd have a slope that's gonna be 2 feet or whether it's 4 feet. I mean, you'd have
Because
a-
it seems pretty high. Is it just the perception from the road?
You'd have to go,
It's just the perception
it's
from the
About
road?
5 or
Yeah.
6 feet.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
It'll
Oh, no,
come
it
down.
seemed
It'll
much
come-
higher than
Yeah, if you
that.
go up there, you can
It'll
easily,
come
you can
down
you can
from
easily
the
walk
cap
up.
on
Yeah,
it, too.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
That's been compressed as they've layered it, so I mean, that's
And it will,
compressed
and it
down
will,
that big
and it will,
5 feet?
Not
it will
as much as
continue.
we would hope, but it's been compressed
Yeah.
somewhat just by driving on it. That's
Yeah.
the best.
Because I
can
thought,
do.
I thought we had talked about we would compress it at different levels, right, to make sure that.
Well,
And
as
roll
they,
the
foot-
as they
we talked
placed it there, they drove over it, but that's
They
as
keep
much
driving, yeah,
compression
they keep
as,
driving over it,
you know.
compressing it, you know.
So, I got a whole bunch of questions. I thought the whole intention, though, was that they would put those ball fields back with clay and such, the 2 fields that are there right now, not the upper field, but the fields that they had to go over to get there, that those were gonna be repaired and put back as were. That's not part of.
They weren't part of that first change order.
Do we have
Fir-
the drawing?
Yeah, the first change, there's a whole plan on the wall. The first change order was to move that material to the back, because there was a question about who would do the fields and so forth.
So the
And-
fields are
and-
not in the cost?
No.
of the project?
No,
The separate,
No,
kept it as a
there was
separate
no work at
project.
all in the
Yeah.
fields originally. That was-
zero,
Well, we originally had a field,
yes,
No, no, but I
Yeah.
mean, it was,
yes,
this,
they were there.
under
They're
this-
right now.
Yeah.
Under this contract, there was to be no
Yeah.
work on this area.
Yeah,
It was
I'm-
totally
I'm
outside
sorry.
their area.
Okay.
Right, and then when we negotiated the change order for the contaminated soil to move over here,
Right.
this was still out of
Yeah,
their limit of work.
yes.
So anything that happens to those fields is part of this current discussion, the change order we're talking about now.
Okay. I thought since we're giving them access to back there, those fields were gonna kind of,
Oh, because they drove over them.
we're gonna be put back as is.
yeah, yeah,
Because we
Yeah.
have to cap them anyways.
Yeah. yeah, they're,
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
The only reason we gave them access to that is because it saved us so much money. Because our other
Yeah.
choice
Well,
was
so
take
far,
the
let's see where
soil
we end
outside.
up. Let's see if it saves us anything where we end up.
Well, it does,
Gonna
because
get
we're
new.
still gonna spend money to fix
One
the
way or another.
fields.
yeah, well,
Right.
even if you didn't do it, even if you took everything off the site, those
Right.
fields are contaminated. You had,
Right.
you know, they had
We-
something
They
had
still
to be
have to
done.
be capped no matter what.
Could we get, the other vote at town meeting was that they voted to go ahead with a remediation on the turf field.
Yes,
So does that allow us now to possibly take the clean soil from the,
we've been,
from the high school field to use as capping?
We've had active discussions with Jim Luca. Jim Luca came back and indicated the loam that's over at those fields, that loam is clean. And we can use that on this project if the schedules dovetail. In other words, it all depends on whether the schedules work out. If we're gonna be, you know, installing loam this coming August, and it dovetails with them picking up the loam, and they screen it and bring it over, yeah, absolutely, we can use that, and it comes off this price. Because again, like I said, I think we have about, for those fields, I think we have a lot more loam involved in the site. But I think just for our fields, we probably have 3,000 or 4,000 yards. So, again, we could easily take it, because we need a heck of a lot more loam than that, because every bit of loam on our site is all part of the first change order. It's all loam coming in off-site.
Real question, I'm sorry to ask it, but where this field is, where it drops down way back there?
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't use some of that dirt and spread it a couple feet there? There's
There's
that
one
whole
on
lower
this
field
state.
down there.
That's where
That's the buffer
septic-
zone.
That's where the septic
That's the
system
septic
goes, yeah.
system, this is paved right there, that's gonna stay, but we're putting it here, that's
Yeah.
a lower area.
Mm.
And that's, this part has trees, but this part, so some of that material is going there, not here, but there.
That's the area I was talking about, Eric, asking if they were still planning on filling it in.
You know, we investigated changing the grades here, but because the septic system's there, it complicated things. We couldn't put contaminated.
This is
on
behind
top
where the
of it.
school is right now, right? That
Right.
where it drops real low.
Yeah, to
back
left
there.
side, yeah.
And that's where
Yeah.
the septic system
But the-
goes, and
Yeah.
therefore we can't really fill it.
Right,
in.
right,
Right.
right.
Septic system of the existing Pembroke.
No,
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 the new one.
The new one's
Okay,
going,
okay.
It's septic.
the new one's going there.
And it's another stupid question, but I mean, you can't fill into some level and then put the system in and then, no.
No.
Is the septic system staying at the same grade, like the same grade that field is right now? When you're done doing the septic, is it at the grade it is now?
We raised it a little bit, maybe a foot, something like
So
that.
now you're gonna have a real discrepancy, because now you raise the other field next to it 5-6 feet.
Oh, yeah, there's a
Yeah.
slope there.
Yeah.
There's a
If you
major
raise
slope.
that a foot, could you get rid of some of the material in there and then cap it with your 6 to 8 inches of loam on top?
That's one of the original thoughts when, before, we were looking to put this
Right, I think
material,
we've
every
maxed
place.
out the
Yeah.
cap.
We're raising
though.
everything all over the place just to get the material, keep it on site.
Right.
I think
But
we've
we weren't
maxed
even
out the
close to
cap,
getting
the
it taken
height
care of.
on top.
I mean, if you're gonna raise it up a foot from what it is now, there's no sense putting, why couldn't you put 5 or 6 inches of that contaminated material and then the loam on top of that?
It can't sit on top of a low material. I believe it has to sit on top of a fill material. for the
Right, it has to be
septic
good
system.
drainable material,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and what we have
No, I know,
isn't
the septic,
drainable.
I'm talking the very top. So if you're raising
Even on
that,
top, we can't put too much of organic material on top of it.
It's limited.
There's sort of a limit as to how much we can put on top.
One of the
If we had,
advantages of letting
You know,
use-
drainable material, even if it was, we might be able to put it on top and then put the cap on it. But we don't.
Right.
It's, unfortunately, it's all mixed. Most of it's organic.
But I'm just, one of the advantages of letting them use that area to put all that soil was it was gonna help level off, right, to some degree, because there was always a big drop off. The girls' softball is the only way I can relate to a field, up to the other one. Now we're saying, well, we're gonna lose that, because now we're gonna go 6 feet higher potentially. So now we're gonna have even a bigger discrepancy from the field where the septic system's gonna go. We still don't have a level field, a continuous level field, which was the ideal situation. There was talk, okay, it might be a foot or two difference. Now we're a mountain upside this way, a hill up that way. We have a less ideal field than when we started.
It's out of our control. The quantities are what they are.
It's not
we're
actually
trying
that
to
much of
deal,
a
you know,
discrepancy.
We always thought we were gonna have surplus soil.
Right.
Not 6 feet. I mean, have you seen it?
What this
Oh,
does,
no,
Eric,
it's
what this
not.
is actually gonna do, the way it's graded now, right now, the idea and the pricing they're giving us now is the grading plan minimizes the height between the two fields and the
There's
third
gonna
field.
be
It's pushing a
minimal
lot of that
change
stuff
across
into that
here.
hole to bring it down so that
This
it
is
creates
gonna
a
be-
flatter area that's in more
Remember,
consistent.
when you talk about ideal, I may be misinterpreting, but people are envisioning as if you could play soccer across, and you know, it's level.
Yeah.
But there's a backstop there, there's a fence, you're
Yes.
never gonna play across
I
that
agree with
line.
that.
Yeah, we
So,
know that,
it's 2
yeah.
feet apart,
Yes.
so
I
what's
mean, right now-
the difference gonna be?
2 feet right now, the way we're looking at it, but
That's by pushing a
we
lot
may
of
be
the
able to
stuff
save
off into
money
the
if
hole,
we make it
cleaning,
4
pushing
feet.
it all off.
And
you know
don't
what I
have to
mean?
push as much,
Yeah.
you know, move as much,
Yeah.
so.
And you don't have it pushed back to as far back as you can, there's
We
some.
do in the design,
Yeah.
we
Oh,
push
I know, in the design, but right now it's not pushed
No,
back.
it's
that
not.
far.
It's not.
That's how we
That's right.
lower it.
Yeah.
We
That's
push
right.
it so
Yeah.
the toe of the slope goes down to
Pushing
the
it back
limit
and
of
then
work.
pushing it in the hole.
And that lowers the
Yeah.
quantity.
Yeah.
You do 6 feet, you're gonna need steps to get up there, so parents.
You can go up
grandparents
on the
can walk up
diagonal.
there
You
and-
can go up on the diagonal. That's the way the proposed path.
There is
He's
an
talking-
age.
Training for the high school fields.
He's talking in between the two fields, it's only gonna be 2 feet, or are
Yeah,
you
right
talking?
now.
It's a disaster.
Or is it,
Yeah.
could it change
But
to be
we're talking
higher?
about only making
Yes,
it
it
2
could
feet.
save money.
It-
That's
well,
the point.
no.
If we,
That's the
No, he
point.
said if
We
it
wanna
stays
know
the
what
way
that
it is
cost
now.
is.
We
It
need to
might
cost
be-
it out and find
It's
out.
significant, but could be a big part of the cost.
Yeah.
So, it does change, I mean, the other reason to keep it lower is, as Jeff Wade kept pointing out, it expands it horizontally.
Right.
So you have a slightly larger area.
Yeah.
The higher you come, because of the pose of the slope,
Yeah.
it tapers. So you have less playable area.
That was
Even
the
though
main
it's not a
reason to kinda
field,
get it
even
down,
it's
is
not
to keep it
legitimate,
wa- and make
it
it
still
bigger,
gives you a
yeah.
certain, so the more you can lower it, the more it expands. Right now, it's about 2.5 to 1. So for every foot, you pick up 2.5, horizontally.
And if we move a lot of that dirt over to the existing baseball field, we should almost call it like field A, B, and C, but the main
Yeah, we
field,
can't.
You can't move a lot of dirt over there because then you're gonna have the same pothole and sinking and all that that we
Right.
discussed
Right,
over
right,
there.
right.
Yeah.
We don't want
Can't
that over
afford
there.
that.
No,
That's
no,
why we gotta
no,
keep the
no.
contaminated, the organic, think of it that way, it's not even because it's contaminated, it's
Yeah.
because it's organic.
Right.
We wanna keep the organic here, or in this new mound that, you know,
'Cause
where the
remember,
trees are.
the field that we've now filled in, that was a well-used field, and that gets used year-round, by flag football and girls softball, that was a very used field.
You know,
So-
one of the things that's important to note,
We are gaining a field,
We're
so to
gaining the
speak,
big
on
one,
the
I
septic,
understand.
no,
Yeah.
where
the
the septic
septic.
field is.
There's,
This is actually gonna be a little bit larger
Right.
than it is today.
yeah,
We talked about
90,
making that a U.
90
And
by
that's-
200,
That's
yeah.
like a U12 soccer field.
U12 soccer field, all right.
Now,
That would be very useful.
and that's something you didn't have before.
Right.
Yeah.
just as a quick follow-up, when this was originally packaged, the material coming over to that spot, there was about a third of it was gonna be fill material, fill, that was
Gravelly.
compactable material.
drainable.
And 2/3 of it was gonna be the loam material.
Right, that-
When they started to strip everything off, it was all loam.
Right.
If we had had a third of that material that was fill, we could have actually put that on the 2 fields and then capped over the top of that. Those fields would have come up a couple of feet. It would have made these
It
fields,
would've drained well, would've been
well,
great.
it would have been comparable, you know, but unfortunately, as they started to pull all that stuff out, you never know until you get there,
The numbers.
it ended up being all loam. So
Which
again,
is
like
what
I
our
said, it
problem
eliminated us from putting the fill on top of the 2 other
Right.
fields. That would have brought those up. Then you cover that over with its, you know, with your cap material. Now they're much closer in elevation. But you can't put the loam on the other 2 fields, or they'll also be unplayable for, you know, for athletic purposes, you know,
Which is
so.
part of the reason we had to do the redesign.
Yeah, that's why the redesign was done, you know, and it's just given us, there's just been a lot of extra loam because of the depth of the loam material.
So what Pat has said, and it's the only thing that makes sense, he needs Brait to price everything out à la carte.
Yeah.
And then we can take each thing and decide what we want to do or not do based on cost. But we can't make any decisions until we have prices in front of us.
Just keeping, we saved, was it 1.2 million or something by using?
1.2, 1.3, yeah.
1.2, 1.3 million
Yeah.
by using that site in the back.
Yeah.
So if we start adding stuff that comes up to another $1 million, now we've saved 200, 300,000, you know, on this
And
mess.
you're
So we'll
getting-
see where we end up.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have been able to use those fields because they
Those
have
fields,
the arsenic,
yeah,
so you have to
those fields
recap the
were-
fields that are
You'd have to
existing.
still do the
So
work.
there's
You'd still be
more-
Still
spending
had to do it.
$500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000.
As soon
Yeah.
as the arsenic was
Yeah.
discovered, there was nothing you were ever gonna do on those fields.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Remember, we had, the price we had to get rid of, the number we had
Well,
to
we
get rid of
could've used the
everything.
soil we wanted to move from the high school. Is that contaminated soil? No.
No, the
Some of
loam
it.
material, yeah.
No,
The
no,
top-
that was gonna be
The top material, yeah.
But we can use some of it now,
Yeah.
Right.
hopefully.
If it
The number we had from
sequences
Brait,
out.
to get everything off-site, we had several prices. One was over $4 million.
Right.
The price we had from Brait, to take everything off, to do what we're doing right now, was like $3.1 million. You know, and we, you
That's
know.
why we did that pile.
And we ended up fighting over, you know, 2.1 million and kept struggling and struggling, got it down to 1,750, and that was, you know, we felt that was a win. Knowing we're gonna have to do something to somebody was gonna have to do something to the other 2 fields.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're between a rock and a hard place with this.
Yeah.
And we just need the numbers in front of
Yeah.
us at this point to
Yeah.
start making some decisions.
And if something comes up that we feel that there's something to put in front of you that, you know, to expedite things, you know, we'll certainly ask if there's a way of setting up an interim meeting or something, you know.
Right.
But we just, at this
Maybe
point,
in like 2 weeks or something.
Yep.
it's been, like I said, it's been a struggle. We've been, I mean, we were reviewing his stuff Sunday night. He sent it over Sunday. We're trying to get something, you know, in front of everybody. It just came through, but it was the same situation. We just didn't have something that was comfortable to put in front of you.
Well, Michelle and I talked about whether we should try and pick another night for a meeting, and I said, at this point, until they have the numbers, it's not even worth
Yeah, until
trying
we
to
get-
coordinate it.
Yeah, it's.
So let's wait till they come back and say, all right, and if it means we can, call another meeting, we will.
Yeah.
Anything to expedite,
Yeah.
time-wise, we do understand that time crunch, Carol.
Yeah, I know,
We
I know
do.
you do, and I
Yeah.
appreciate Pat's efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just, I just like keep it on the radar screen.
yeah, no, it definitely is, we get it, we
And all you
do.
have to do is go over there at recess and watch where those kids
Yeah.
have to play, and,
Yeah.
there may making the best of it, and,
Yeah.
we thought we could tolerate it, obviously till June. But now if it looks like it might be all of next year,
I know, it's tough.
so if
very
there's
hard.
some
There may be
hybrid
some
that's with
hybrids,
it,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. if we
Yeah,
could
we'll
consider that.
try and come up with
Th-
something.
This is one of the inherent problems of public bidding too, where when you're pursuing a contractor for a change order, it's work he doesn't really have to do, it's not part of his contract. It's hard to force him,
Right,
one, to do the work, it's hard to force him to even give you the price, or give you a good price. And if you're in a position where you're up against the clock, you lose all leverage, he'll just, stand pat and say, that's my number, take it or leave it.
And to go to an
So-
outside,
You gotta be able to have a
Do you
little
have to use
time.
him? Do you have to use him? Is that part
would
of
you,
it?
we've had that discussion, would you explain
I understand the reason.
the
for it.
ramifications?
If you wanted to go out and do it separately, as I mentioned to you when I spoke to you, the projects are fairly intertwined together.
Yeah.
But could you go out with some ingenuity and get another price someplace? And the answer to that is probably yes.
Right.
But you have to consider the consequences. First of all, to do that, you have to make sure that the relationships between these contractors has to be separate. That means, that's why I said to Carol, that the best bet would be to have Brate jump on it this summer. If in fact you decided, we can't get together, we're gonna have to do something else, and we're gonna have to bid this thing out. First of all, you'd have to obviously engage DRA and their engineers to do a separate bid packet. Second of all, the timing will work out. The fact of the matter is that Brate is gonna commandeer the entire road. He's gonna be working on that road. He's gonna be working on the septic area. There's no way for that other contractor to peacefully coexist using that same road, coming up that area to work on the fields. That would mean that you would let Brate do all the summer work, he would do the road work, he would do the work around the building, he'd do the septic system, and then when he's done and we're ready for school, then another contractor would come in and do it in the fall.
Which means it wouldn't
That would
even
work out,
start.
that would work out because it would take them some time to get the whole bid packet ready. And then the public bidding situation is such that you're gonna put it on the street for a month, you're gonna take proposals, you're gonna do it. By the time you got it awarded, it'd be August anyway. It'd allow Brate to get his work done, he'd be out of the way, he'd go back to working around the building. You would have another contractor come in and you'd be doing it in the fall, and you'd be tearing up those fields and everything else. The ideal situation is to try and do it this summer. The only way we're gonna do it this summer is with Brate. There's no other way of doing it this summer under the public bid situation other than have Brate do it. But again, we're dealing with someone that knows it's an undesirable piece of work. I mean, we're out there every day hounding them. We saw a plume of dust. They can't take care of the dust. Put more water here. Your wheel washer. I saw a little
Yeah.
bit of water running out here. So every day we're on top of them. They understand you're gonna do the same thing with us when we do the fields.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you put yourself in their shoes, so while we're, rolling up our sleeves and, get them by the throat to try and get the numbers down, the reality is that no matter who does it, it's not a favorable piece of work. It's a
not
tough
much
piece of
leverage
work.
there, do you?
No.
Yeah. So he's our best bet if we want to get this work done this summer. He's our only bet if we want to get this
Yeah.
work done this summer.
Yeah.
Other than that, the earliest you're gonna see any work happening out there is gonna be this coming fall. If we can move like hell, get the documents done, get it on the street, that certainly is not, our priority. Our priority is to try and come to some kind of logical arrangement.
How
with
big
Brate.
of a project is it with big machinery to move that dirt?
2 months.
flat out? 2 months,
2
really,
months,
yeah?
yeah. Well, there's 2 months, there's drainage, there's, you're moving 15,000 yards of dirt into different configurations, you're regrading the whole place. You're gonna bring the capping material in, you've got drainage, there's another, I don't know how much drainage work there is. It's 2 months worth of work, yeah.
Majority of the work though is doing the baseball fields and the full layout that the.
Oh, yeah, then you got some more work on top, yeah.
Fine grading.
Yeah,
Then it's the sprinklers and all that.
I'm sorry?
Then it's just irrigation and everything.
Yeah, then once you get the cap material in, because you're gonna be installing the irrigation's gonna go in the cap material
On top of it.
on top of it. Yeah, that's why you got 2 feet of material instead of 1.5 feet to make room for the irrigation.
What's the update on the irrigation source?
Water.
Well,
We got great flow.
Yeah, there's good news and bad news,
Yeah.
George. Tremendous flow.
Got more water you could ever use.
Unfortunately, there's a question, Jim Lucas he's checking out the
Water
level of
quality.
arsenic there was a little bit more than you would have anticipated, but he's gotta go through the whole chemical analysis to see what that all means, and he's coming tomorrow morning.
so you could might handle it with one well?
I think we
Yes.
get 365
think
gallons a minute.
based on the
It's
volume and
I've never
flow.
heard of a well,
One well.
you
Our
know.
water
Did
Yeah.
you guys
very
have
high
to
right
dig
now.
it, or was it
$25,000
existing?
savings.
No,
cost
we,
with that, right?
it's a 500 foot, 500 some odd foot, what is it, 600 feet?
A little less than 600.
Yeah, where it's a rock, and we must have hit a real great vein down there, because the water, we got 365.
The water test
When they said
came back
365, I said, it's gotta be a mistake, you mean 36.5? They said, no,
How deep was the well?
5 or 600 feet.
500 feet.
Yeah, yeah.
Just short of 6.
So that's how far the arsenic.
But we did own two wells, and if we don't
It
need the
proves it's
second one,
naturally
there
occurring.
would be a credit.
That's what that does prove, yeah. Yeah.
What is the credit for the second one if we didn't need it, since
I
it
think
seems like
we,
we don't need it right now?
50,000.
Well, I don't know,
So-
that was our budget, but I don't know if that's what they're
There's a
carrying,
linear,
George.
I think there's a linear foot price for the shaft, and then there's a lump sum price for the,
Yeah.
well
It
equipment.
might not
and,
be
you know,
quite that
yeah,
much, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's not as much as.
Well, let me ask you this.
15,000 each.
Would both wells have the
Each
same
well is
amount of arsenic? I
15,000?
mean, I know that seems like a silly question,
I asked
but
that question.
you did.
Question, I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said if he determines there's too much arsenic in the well, would the other site have just as much?
It depends on.
I mean, is it like the
What
same
other
lake
site?
and you're pulling from both
The other
sides,
well?
or could
It
it
could be
be?
on
different
our
veins,
side.
it could be
Yeah.
different veins of
Well,
water.
that's
on
why I'm asking. I didn't think it was that silly of a question.
Yeah.
Supposedly, it's pretty expensive to
Yeah, you
filter
wouldn't
it.
want it for irrigation, yeah.
Somehow I thought I remember being at some kind of meeting.
They do it in the town of Oxford for the Oxford Police Station.
Oh, right, yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
It is extraordinarily prohibitive.
I thought I remember.
Is that because it's drinking water?
Conversation was.
Or public water
No,
supply?
they don't use it for drinking, it is.
Georgetown has a mechanism.
So would it be cheaper to
They
pay?
always have
Water fields, what is it?
That's
arsenic in water.
No, we don't have any arsenic in our wells.
But Jim Lucas coming tomorrow morning, and we'll have a
I'll
lot
let you
more.
know.
What he did, when he sent the report back saying it's
Shallow
slightly
wells.
over,
Brown.
he asked for a whole series of other things, technical items. He wanted the whole spectrum of tests. He wanted to know what kind of, how they drew the samples. He wanted a whole bunch of other information.
Oh, that may have
So when he's there
contaminated
tomorrow,
it.
depending on how they drew the samples, we'll find out tomorrow exactly what the situation is.
What would we be using this well water for?
Irrigation,
Irrigation.
yeah. But what we don't wanna do is, we don't wanna dump arsenic contaminated water
Right.
on a
Right.
site we just spent a fortune on abating, you
Can't
know?
we just run a pipe into the river and draw off of that, draft off of it?
That may have as much
I
arsenic.
have no idea if
Wouldn't
you can
think
do
so.
that with the con.
So I thought it was like 10 milligrams per, that's the MCL.
This is .03, and it's .010 is the MCL. The EPA limits is .010,
And it's point one
this is
three.
.030.
All right, well, we'll wait till we hear from him.
Yeah, wait till
And
you
we'll
from Jim.
deal
He'll
with
have
that,
it, yeah,
okay,
yeah, he'll have it.
That's the only other thing,
Yeah.
except for if you're gonna wash Lowe's, that's
Yeah.
when that.
okay. Carl, did you have anything else you wanted to discuss?
Just to let you know that we're working on furniture and equipment procurement too.
My
Uh,
favorite parts. I got on this committee to do stuff like that, and look at me.
And then next week, we have a meeting scheduled to finalize the color selections.
Right.
As we mentioned during the design phase, we did spend a lot of time in select colors at that point, but because it's a public process, you have to name multiple products. You can't always count on getting the exact brand that we specified.
Or the exact shade.
And so certain different companies have slightly different colors, and so now that we have all the products in and all the submittals, we'll make
We'll be using a
final
lot of
color
purple.
selections.
We actually did get a lot of the products that were
A lot of
specified.
Oh, we did? That's
Yeah, there's some
great.
stragglers for a few things, but for the most part, for the linoleum flooring, that was a big one.
How about the
terrazzo,
terrazzo? Yeah,
we got the one that was
Yeah.
specified.
Yeah.
great.
Mm-hmm.
That's good news. So
Yeah,
that'll make it
so-
easier.
Yes, it'll make it
Yes.
easier, yeah.
Okay.
So those are underway.
Great. Anything else? Anyone else have any? Okay. Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And again, if Pat comes back with some numbers, we'll
They reviewed.
be in touch and try and find another date to meet so that we can get this resolved and discussed. Thank you, everyone, and thank you again for your support meeting. Eric, do you have a new position in town now
Includes, you know,
or not?
the infield includes all the fencing, includes the,
Was that unannounced
that's
to
why
you
it's
that
something that
you were
Yeah,
gonna
have
get
any
written
idea
in?
what the-
If elected, I will.